Brand activism.
We want to amortize the cost of these props for Scott.
Scott, the handle's a little uncomfortable. Just want to tell you, when I marched in the Women's March, I was recently at what should I call it? A seminar in Tulum. It wasn't even a seminar, right? A retreat.
Is that what they call it?
That's what they call it.
Okay.
And there was a workshop on protest poster making. And I was like, the times they are a-changin'. Like, come make your own protest poster. This is a very millennial event, as you might guess. So this will be really interesting. I'll be like this. Hi, everybody. Really excited to be here. I'm Erin, and I am really excited and happy to have a conversation with two executives who have played in so many different ways in the media and content business about this topic. So, of course, Jordan Levin, CEO of Awesomeness, long history in both traditional media and digital media, and of course, a long history catering and serving younger audiences, being CEO of WB, as well as a number of other, very, very lauded positions. And Sarah Harden, CEO of Hello Sunshine, as Scott mentioned, the content company founded by Reese Witherspoon, and prior to that, Otter Media and Chernin Entertainment. And again, someone who has a lot of experience building brands and content across platforms. So I'll dive right in. I'd like each of you, we'll just start off with maybe talking a little bit about how each of your companies have taken a stand, or how you express your unique voice. And I'll start with Sarah, and the kind of audience that you're serving.
Great. Well, we're a pretty new company, a new brand, but our mission at its core is, we're building a media brand across all storytelling platforms, from film and television to audio to social storytelling, with a sort of singular mission across all of that, which is to change the narrative for women. And our focus in our first 18 months is really getting those storytelling engines rolling and serving our mission and the audience that we think there's a white space in how they've been served on digital and direct to consumer, and also in the film and television product that reflects the representation of the complexity of women's lived experiences, their life, and female identity.
Great. Jordan? Maybe I'll let you start off just with how your company's gotten involved in taking a stand.
Yeah, I think, ultimately for us, we just sort of live by a creed and have tried to evolve, what we do and the scale of what we do based on that, which is, if it's important to our audience, it's important to us. So I'm not sure I would characterize what we're doing as taking a stand so much as amplifying what matters to them and enabling them to have a voice and trying to provide some context and understanding and give them a platform.
Okay, yeah. We've talked about this topic a little bit earlier, and Sarah, you mentioned a word that I think everybody here is probably on the list of overused words, but that's because it's so appropriate and perfect, and that's authenticity. I guess when we're thinking about where and how brands should have a voice, right? And especially when you're looking at the kinds of content you develop and produce. Talk a little bit about perhaps the role that plays in how you and your team is choosing projects or choosing partners to work with.
Well, I think it's a couple of things. I think our audiences are so smart. And I think it starts with that deep respect. I think, it was really interesting to hear the Twitter speaker there, and I couldn't agree. While this is a new brand, it really is a company that Reese has been building for 20 years, and the role she selected, she has a history of as a producer. And the commitment to her to elevate the voices of other women that not only deserve to be seen, but we think audiences will love. And everything flows from that deep commitment that I think people have been following her have seen. I think authorship matters. We're a company that's founded in storytelling, but we believe authenticity is about authorship, and that also means if we are telling stories that are representative of different lived experiences, you'd better have people involved in the creation of those stories who are connected to it. So it's not only important the faces we see on screen and the types of stories we reflect with those, but who's in the writers' room, who are on our crews, who are our showrunners, and even on social, as we, it's such a socially conscious audience. Like, who are our teams? So I think from everything from founder, leadership, mission, culture, it's all part of what shows up in any creative product, and audiences can smell the authenticity a mile off. So it's just it's table stakes, I think, in engaging anyone today in a world that's so noisy and crowded, and everyone's fighting for their attention.
Yeah. As you mentioned, Reese, she founded this company. She was at it before Me Too and Time's Up.
Yeah.
Right? Have those movements changed your approach or shifted the strategy or enhanced or?
Oh, look, it hasn't shifted our central mission. It's added a sense of urgency, and we're trying to build the company with a really long-term vision and commitment, but it's added a real sense of urgency, and it's created this incredible conversation as well. And I think men and women are showing up in a way that says, oh my goodness, the change is now. And so it's an exciting time. I feel like it is a problem-solving time. There's a lot of linking arms and a recognition that as culture changes, like, we all have an opportunity to move into that and be part of and that shift. And Me Too and Time's Up are signals of a major cultural shift.
Do you worry about backlash?
Well, I think everyone should worry about backlash, but not for the reasons you might think. I think backlash is often a signal of really shitty execution. Like, it isn't that a brand shouldn't take a stand, but they're not thoughtful in their execution, not thoughtful in their communications. They're not authentically representing the brand equity they've built with their audiences. They're asking their brand followers to pivot too quickly. So I think anyone should worry about execution, and we should worry about backlash. And the first question should be, was this a fundamental disconnection in our values and our mission, or did we just shittily execute? And I think a lot of times it's shitty execution.
And if I can just jump in on that
Yes.
really quickly, I think it's also about coming across as looking opportunistic.
Yeah.
And that is obviously part of shitty execution, but are you taking advantage of something that is really meaningful to a group of people to just simply try and create a transaction?
Well, you read
jump
my
on the
mind, because
bandwagon?
I was going to ask you that about awesomeness. Like, you read my mind. Is there a danger you're free riding on,
I don't
on
think
a
so,
young
because I
person's
think,
movement?
awesomeness is really a company that was born in an age where, our audience or our community is constantly dialoguing and engaging with us and with one another. And really the content that we create and what we do is provide a catalyst for that community. And so it's less of a unidirectional relationship. We're not in an era that, especially for a younger audience, Gen Z, people, high school, college, post-college, this is not an audience that engages in a linear manner. It's a nonlinear consumption, and it's a relationship and an ongoing relationship. You're not serving to them. You're constantly engaged in a dialogue with them. And as long as that dialogue feels real, natural, as long as you're respecting them and you're reacting to their needs and allowing them a voice and a platform, I think that there's less risk in that. There's obviously not a uniform voice across a generation. We see debate occurring, and as long as we can frame that debate and make sure that at the core we're capturing values that speak to sort of respect,
right?
And the respect we have for the audience, I think we'll always be in a good place.
Yeah, because this makes me think, certainly a big part of the theme here is we've had an incredible, year, 18 months, just politically, economically, globally. We're very polarized. We found that social media is creating silos. Is taking a stand going to further polarize us? As content creators and storytellers, what is the obligation here? To be inclusive, more inclusive, or by taking a stand, do you think it could further polarize?
I've always sort of guided my belief upon something I was taught really early on, and that I truly believe, which is if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. So I think you're obligated as a company, a creator who has an underlying set of values to decide what you believe. Now, whether that is doctrinal in terms of a political ambition, whether that's more about a humanistic approach. I think that's really, the debate that various companies are going to have. But we had a panel last night with a number of young women, and they were asked a question about how do they see brands and brands being politically active, and they said it's not really about whether a brand is active or not. For them, it's about, is a brand human, that behind every company there's real people, and are they being empathetic, and are they treating people in a humane way, and they respond to brands that do that, despite whether or not they always agree with the politics of that brand. And I thought that was really, illuminating that this idea that brands are sort of faceless, nameless corporations. They're smarter than that,
Right.
and they want to relate to a brand that that they feel like has,
Right.
some dimension to it.
As a voice.
I mean, I just add one thing to that too. I think we're in, because we're all mostly shareholder-driven companies too, and I just think, the economics of knowing who you're for and building engagement and brand love, is so much more powerful. We're moving away, I think, from this thin relationship with lots of people. We look at it in our media, these reach relationships to relationships based on depth and engagement. The REI is such a good case example. I love that. I'm a huge REI customer. I tell you what, the love I have for that brand, and when I saw that campaign, you know what, if I spend $500 this year, and I've got a bunch of teenagers, so it's actually a lot more than that, but that should be the focus of brands, of like doubling down on who loves you, who's going to follow you, who's going to evangelize you, and don't worry about the reach customers. Now, I can say that as a position with someone trying to build a brand for a very specific audience, and I think for mass consumer products brands, man, your jobs are so hard. You should be getting hazard pay today as well, but I do think the economics of that, of like not only knowing who you're for, but serving your audience in the deepest, in the ways that build brand love, because it is the path through the media mess and the noisiest consumer landscape we have.
I used to say
economic wealth and shareholder value.
No, it's a great point. I used to say when I was at Maker Studios, like to brands, your fans are already there. And in fact, they're already evangelizing your products and services, right? So why not? They're a community. They're a community.
I think
Why
it's
not
less
engage
about
them?
the political stand you take and what's the underlying values beneath it. You can disagree on, again, a political approach, but underneath it is how do you see people? How do you want to treat people? What do you think is important? How should we behave with one another?
Well, and you talked a little bit about the vote, right? Like, doesn't matter who you're voting for, vote.
Yeah,
as
if
being,
we probably
as being
take
a value.
one stand as a company, it's trying to facilitate voter registration and get out the vote movement. You can vote however you want, but use your voice.
Yeah. Sarah, I was going to close with you by asking a question, but you kind of already answered it, which was, and you both have corporate investors, you work with a variety of distributors and other entities. Is there any risk involved in kind of taking a strong stand on something?
I think the risks are bigger. I think the risks are bigger for not being single-minded about knowing what your mission is, feeling that you work in a company where your mission is worthy, and going after it. And, I think we're in a world right now where storytelling is the cut-through, and I think the focus on creatively excellent storytelling, you have to know that, and I think the risks of not front-footing that are so much larger, and they stem from mission and culture as well. And so if your board is aligned with your mission and your culture, you just have to, the focus is then on creative execution, and I don't think we spend enough time talking, thinking, sweating that, because good creative execution today is just not good enough. It's not going to get you anywhere. It has to be great. I think that's certainly our focus, but we're a much earlier company than many of these, but that's what we're heads down trying to do.
It's a great point. Well, thank you both. I think we're now responsible for running over. but hopefully it was for a good purpose. I mean, this was a fascinating conversation.
Thank
you
you.
guys.